Sites. All right. So good afternoon. Thank you for attending our third Recovery University. So for the few that maybe don't know me, I'm Jamie McGrew. I'm the Director of Community Outreach and Programming here at the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board. And we are holding these lunch and learns just as a way to try to build some additional recovery capital in our 6-county region, have people understand the importance of the work that's being done. Um, this is this is my favorite one that we have done. I am a huge supporter of peer supports, and the value of peer recovery supporters and peer-based services throughout recovery is just so important. And I don't think people realize that value until you actually start working with individuals who are doing that work. And so it's wonderful. I'm super excited to have everybody here. And so we have 3 speakers today. I'm not sure which one wants to go first because I didn't plan well for that. So I didn't know if somebody needed to go and get off or.
My question to you is because what I was going to focus on, because it seemed from your emails that you were all wanting more information about what's going on in around the state and region for peer recovery supporters. And so I was thinking that means certification renewals, what that means for employers.
Yep.
So I do have a presentation, but I don't know if you want me to go there or what you wanted exactly. So I do definitely have things to share with you all, but I'm just not really sure how much you know about the peer techs. Like, do you know about the 5 peer technical assistance centers across the state?
I do. I'm not sure what everybody else knows. So I mean, yeah, we want you to give us kind of a 101, like what you would.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that would mean that I would need to share my screen.
Yep. You should be able to. Can
Or,
you?
or I could put it in the chat and you could share it on your end.
Yeah, if you can, you should be able to share it. If not, tell me and I'll change that.
Okay, let me see. Let's see. There's so much on my board. Yeah, that's my email. We don't want to see that. Yeah, for some reason it's not showing my desktop. I don't know why that is. Let's see. I do that.
There you
Yeah, let me get rid of that.
go.
And then let me see if this works. Um, does that come up for y'all?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
All right. Well,
So
take it
I guess
away,
I'll just
Ginger.
unless you want to wait. Because
You
I
you
can
go.
fly I can fly through this stuff. Basically, my name is Ginger Schmallenberg, and I am the executive director of Athens Mental Health, Inc. And we run a peer recovery organization called The Gathering Place. It's a drop-in center in Athens, Ohio. We have been around for almost 50 years. We are actually the first model in the state for a peer drop-in center. And that means it's peer run, peer led. Half of our board are peers, those who receive the programming services. And we also hire peer recovery supporters on our staff. We also operate a 5-bedroom model of a recovery home for men with co-occurring. So with mental illness and substance use disorder. But basically, I'm also on the board of something called Ohio Peer Recovery Organizations. And that is actually a statewide organization that is unifying the peer voice. And they work really closely with OMAS. It's like they do a lot of run throughs, but their whole point is to prop up those organizations that are peer run organizations, right? And giving lots of trainings, opportunities, all these things. So they developed 5 peer tacks, and the Gathering Place is one, and there are peer technical assistance centers. And so basically, what these centers do, I'll just go through it. Um, they teach people about peer support. They're identifying peers who are interested in the certification process. So these peer tacks, and there's a listing, and I'm also going to tell you about some other helpful websites. So if any of you come across peers that you're working with, you would be able to, revert them to this. But basically, there is a certification process that OMOS is, they designate in every community. It's usually all the Adams boards. The Adams boards are supposed to be the ones that offer this peer training. So if your Adams board doesn't, um, they really should because the money's there because they can work with OMOS and OMOS. They can designate, like our 317 board, they designate the gathering place as the trainer. And that doesn't mean we're doing the trainings. That means we're the liaison. We're doing the registration and we're doing online and in-person trainings for those individuals who want to become a peer recovery supporter. But any county, any board, Adams board, can get this funding from OMOS and work with OMOS to do this. So that information is sent out. And so basically, we're partnering with Ohio Pro and OMOS. And we also do workforce development training. All these peer tacs do that as well, some online, some in person. These are the peer tacs. So the Gathering Place, Goodwill Easter Sills, that's in the Dayton area. Recovery Center of Hamilton County, Sandusky Artisans, they're located in Sandusky, and then the Peer Center, which is in Columbus. So these are currently the five that are doing the support. And because being a peer recovery supporter, it's not like it was in the old days. It used to be that you would send all this stuff to OMOS, you do your application, you do the E-based Academy modules, and then it was OMOS that was like certifying. So you actually send it to an email there. But it's just so much work. Like in our state, I think there are like 6,000 individuals that have had the training, maybe more at this point. And there's 3,000 that are actually certified. And so they kind of parceled out the work to partner with some of the peer recovery organizations that are a little bit bigger, been around longer, to do that. And so, recovery supporter is just a person with a lived experience with a mental illness or substance use disorder. And they've, processed things, they've acquired knowledge, they're in a place now that they've had some deep recovery and they're ready to be in the field. And so a lot of what Ohio Pro does, we're focused on building up that peer because once you do get that certification, it's like, what now, right? Like, where do I find a job? And we actually do have a listing that I can always share with all of you of all of the providers or peer recovery organizations that actually hire, and it is quite extensive across the state that hire peers. There is also on Ohio Pro website, which I think is really important to Ohio peer recovery organizations. They actually have a mobile app that if you are, and it's only for certified peer recovery supporters, but you can be on that mobile app. You can find out all the trainings for recertification. You can network with other peers. It's showing there's job boards on there. It's live time that people can chat and get info. So that's really, really super nice. And OMOS, our Ohio Pro has put that out. And so this is like, I'm just going to kind of go through this because you have other speakers. But basically, it's just talking about what is peer support, what's not, what's the difference between that. And there's also something that's really important for employers that anyone who hires peer recovery supporters, there should be the supervisor, they need to also have training. And so there's actually, OMOS does have a 4-hour live class. And then you also are supposed to be taking the 11 modules of eBase Academy that's for a peer recovery supporter to become a qualified, it's not a certification like the PRS, but to become a qualified peer recovery supporter supervisor. So I'm a supervisor because I'm employing peer recovery supporters. So if your organization is actually hiring, you really need to be a supervisor. You need to go through that training. Just, you may be a therapist, you may be a social worker. That does not mean that you're necessarily qualified in OMOS's eyes to actually supervise a peer supporter until you've done this training. So I'm just going to go through this a little bit more. Examples of job functions of a PRS. This is the type of things that they might do. So why is a PR different than like maybe a therapist or maybe a social worker? Well, one thing is it's because they have that lived experience and their training and their boundaries might be a little bit different than what you might see a social worker having, right? Um, and it's someone that really needs to be able to tell their story, feel comfortable with that. They still have to have strong boundaries or learning ethics and boundaries, but it's just perhaps done in a different way. You're looking at this mutual, peer, you're on the same level. And sometimes if a peer recovery supporter or a peer themselves, they may not identify the same way with someone that they're considering, this person's a supervisor above me, right? Or a counselor even. So sometimes individuals are more apt to open up to a peer recovery supporter about their journey of recovery and be more honest about things. And so that's what we really see across the state in the field, all the data that we've been doing, that when people work with a peer recovery supporter, we see hospital rates go down. We see people going into recovery more. So it's like being a peer recovery supporter is such a valid growing field, and OMOS really, really supports it. They really see this, and Medicaid really supports it. As you know, they've now come up with a whole billing number for that it used to be, it was just you could bill as a peer recovery supporter just for the SUD side, but now they're coming on with more the mental health side. So that's really exciting for employers as well. And so there's a certification process. Um, the individual who, or if you in your work come across someone in your community that you're like, wow, this person has great lived experience, they're doing so great in their recovery. It'd be really great for them to be able to share this, and they need employment, right? And we find in the field those who are in recovery, they work in recovery, they stay in recovery. And there's so many different avenues that individuals can become trained to work in recovery. You do have to have a high school education. Um, so that is one thing. But anyway, you complete an application and you're sending it to whoever is offering your training. Now, OMOS's website is just a wealth of information for peer supporters or for it because it literally leads you, it's telling you where you're getting these renewals, it's telling you how to become, and then they have a calendar. So it changes daily or weekly who's having an online training for the 40 hour, who's having one in person near your county. So it really does do it by county. And so, but there are disqualifying offenses. And so before a person would want to undergo that, they would want to really kind of look over the OMOS website and kind of like, look, what are these disqualifying offenses? And they're actually located right here. And then this also talks about, this is the same thing. And then it talks about, you have references. They've actually done away with that references. You no longer to apply to do the training. You don't have to have two references. You just have to have an application, you send it. And so places like me, I vet them. So I'm looking at them like, did that person, are they identifying with recovery? Because sometimes people are trying to become a peer recovery supporter and they aren't in recovery, right? They just think, oh, I want this training because there's other certifications. If a person says, oh, my family has a lot of mental illness or SUD, I want to be a peer recovery supporter. Well, there's actually a certification you can become a family peer supporter too. So anyway, this is just kind of going through this, and I can actually share this with all of you. So you would have it, you could have it on your board's website. And so people do understand that. And just kind of going over this a little bit, like what the recertification. So every 2 years, a peer, once you become a peer recovery supporter, you must undergo recertification. And what that really means is you have 2 years to do 30 CEUs, and you can gain those. For instance, every year there was a big peer summit, and that Ohio Pro offers, and hundreds of people are available to come. It's really great. Like there's so much education, but you can get 12 CEUs at this 2-day conference. And so I think it's really important for peers to do that. There's like the first, I don't know, like 200, or if you live out of a 50-mile radius of Columbus, you would be able to get free hotel, things like that. There's meals involved. So it's actually pretty good for a peer supporter. And then, so basically, the registration e-license portal, because anyone who wants to start, you can at any time, any peers can go on to eBase Academy and do those. But then when you're ready to certify, there is e-license. So just like social workers, psychologists, um, therapists, counselors, peer supporters now have to go on to e-license, right? So it's really getting to this point. It's such a professional certification. So you now have to register with e-license to be able to get that actual certification. So let's say they've done the 12, it comes out to about 16 hours online independently. Then they go and find a training, right? They're looking on that calendar, they're finding a training. And this is kind of just, I'm just going to kind of go through these as I talk, but it may not be about this, just to let you know. Um, but if the individual first becomes certified, there are peer techs available to help them walk through the process. And so all the time I'm on the phone, or I have hired peers that are actually helping an individual that says, "Hey, I've done my e-license base. What do I do now?" Well, they're going to help them find a training, and then they're going to register for that training. And then when they register for that training, they will just send their application that trainer is going to have them fill out. And it's pretty much the same across the state. They then take that 40-hour training. They need to do a background check, and they are being walked through everything, whether it's online or in person. They're being given packets on where do you go to get your background check. That person is responsible for paying for the background check. Like I personally, my organization, if I've led through someone for a training, I'm going to pay for it, but that just depends, you know, because I want them certified because Southeast Ohio, we don't have very many peer recovery supporters. And so then that person goes on to do the certification on e-license. There, we have peer tax that can help a person. Some people can just do it themselves. And they go on, they're uploading their 11 modules or 40-hour. They're answering these questions. They pay like $3.50. They send it to OMOS. OMOS is then waiting for their background check, going over that, and they're going to send them a test. It's 50-question test. It's pretty, if you took the 40-hour training, you're going to pass this test. They're then going to issue that certification. And then that person has 2 years to take, advantage of continuing education. And so in Ohio Pro and OMOS both offer many of these recertifications. Things like ethics, things like boundaries, diversity and inclusion, system navigation. So all these are offered across the state throughout the year from different venues. And that's what they do to remain certified, right? They then have to go just like a social worker would have to do. You've got to upload your log, and then you have to upload your certification. And so this is just kind of like, once again, I'm going to share this with you all. So anyone in your community, but these are like some sample organizations. So all these organizations right here, they offer recertification modules that people can do online free. And these are just like other links that are important. Once you are certified and you're in this profession, you need to be keeping, like if you click on any of these things, it's going to show you your peer support continuing education log. It's going to show you how to apply for the certification renewal. And once again, frequently asked questions. And once again, I'm going to give you this so you have this in your toolbox. I will also send you the listing. I'll kind of get out of this right now. Well, there is one other thing I want to share. Try to stop sharing, get down there. Sorry. Anyway, I do have a flyer of all these folks with all the names I'll send to you too. So Jamie, I'm just going to send you all this stuff so you can have it to put on your website and the listing of across the state who hires peers, right? And then if any individual is interested, they can, peer techs, that's what we're here for. We're peer technical assistance centers. We have hired people specifically to help people get into training, understand more what it means to be a PRS, and to also link them to Ohio Pro and, have them come to the Peer Summit. So I'm going to try to now come off of this so you guys can now ask me any questions. But I cannot, for some reason, can you just, I cannot, hold on. It's like I can't get off of this right now. I'm so sorry. Let me see if I can. Just want to stop it. Um, Maybe you can just, if you, whoever is the mod, oh, here we go. I got it. Stop share. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay. So does anyone have any questions? I know I kind of flew through that, but it seemed like this is short and you got other folks. Any questions about opportunities for peer recovery supporters in our state, in our region, what we're doing?
Actually, Ginger, my question really goes to supervision, supervisors.
Okay.
So one of the things that I hear a lot are the question about who can actually do the supervision, not just getting, their S or whatever along, but who actually qualifies to be a supervisor for a peer supporter.
Okay. So if an individual, so let's say there's someone that is a peer recovery supporter already, right? And they've worked for at least 3 years in behavioral health or substance use, that they've worked already, they would be able to be qualified to become a peer recovery supporter. They've already taken the, E-Base Academy modules, but there is a 4-hour live training that the Peer Center actually does for OMOS, and it's on the OMOS calendar. And like OMOS has its own section of becoming a peer recovery supporter. I mean, it is a wealth of information. And so that individual would then be able to go and just get on that calendar and then they take the class. Now, and if you're an individual who is a therapist, social worker, obviously you've been in the field for a while, right? You would be qualified. But you still have to take, they're still asking you to take the E-Base 13 or 11 modules in that class. Okay. But now let's say there's someone that says, oh, I'm a peer recovery supporter. Can I be? Well, not if you haven't had 3 years experience. Or sometimes people have said, well, I'm a pastor. I work with it. Well, you haven't really had 3 years of experience working with populations of individuals in recovery for mental health or substance use disorder. So that's kind of, but you don't have to be like, I'm not a clinician, and I'm qualified to be a peer recovery supporter, and I don't have the certification of being a peer recovery supporter, but I have run an agency like I have for 11 years. So I've been in the field. I'm a mental health first aid facilitator. So because I've been in this field of working, at a local, regional, and state level, that would qualify me. And so then I have to take, I had to go through the E-Base and then taking those 4 hours of training, and it's excellent training. It's like the people that give it, Gary from the Peer Center, he is so amazing. And he's a certified peer recovery supporter. But he's been one for a very long time and he's giving this training. It's just things that we don't think of. Um, Even if someone's like a therapist or psychologist, if they've never really know as much about peer support, they're not automatically really qualified, I feel, even though they have the licensure, they're a clinician, so that's qualifying them in one area. They really need to go through that training, because when you supervise a peer, it is more than just, okay, standard sitting down and going over like a list, check, check, right? It's not like a review. That's not what peer certification really is. It's not like supervising maybe other workers you might have under you. It's more, you really want to develop a trauma-informed approach, and you want to develop like, uplifting that person, like making sure they're not getting too burned out, right? Because supervising peers, not that we don't have that same expectation, right? But sometimes employers tend to use peers in different ways than really what that certification is for. That certification is for them to work with peers one-on-one, right? And they can do case documentation too, but it's just different than documentation that a clinician would do. But you don't use a peer recovery supporter to file papers, right? Or to clean the kitchen, or you know what I mean, or things like that. That's not what you use a peer recovery supporter for. Um, and so supervising them, it's just a little bit different than how you might supervise someone else. And so that's why I say take the training. So does that answer your question a little bit, Jamie? Yeah.
My question is, how much supervision do we need and how often? I have been through the Ohio Revised Code. I've been through OMOS. I'm a peer support supervisor.
Okay. Okay.
I recently got a new supervisor, and we have been through, I don't know how much paperwork now, and we cannot find it written anywhere as to how much and how often.
Well, I don't think there's any type of standard for that, but we just want to think of best practice. It's like, I mean, I think any best practice tells us that the individual, it's like you're supervising every day that you're working, really. And it's like that, like, right? Someone comes
Yeah.
into work and you see him, hey, how's your day to day? How are things been going for you? What is it, that you've been working on? Or every now, like, oh, my peer recovery support, they're checking in with me every day. But that's not, I mean, it's not like we have to stop looking at supervision like, oh, it's a sit down, like for an hour, right? And doing that. I think it's best practice to try to spend every time with anyone that you are a supervisor of at least an hour a week. I mean, I think that is that, but it doesn't have to necessarily be all at once, you know. Um, but that is best practice, we're supervising individuals. Like I supervise 10, 20 students as well, because we're a living classroom here. And so with my social work students, I am best practice. I have to give them as their field supervisor. These are undergrads. I do have to give them an hour of supervision a week, right? But just like you would with something like that, if you're a social worker and you've supervised, students, you're going over that learning plan, that competency. And so I think what's really important when you're supervising peers is that you should have really a best practice of what is it they're working on, right? What are their goals? And I think that with any employer, whether they're a peer or not, with everyone who I supervise, they have set goals and we're going over them at least quarterly. And so some people I've heard like, oh, doing like a real sit down supervision once a quarter, that you're really going in and kind of looking at goals, where they're going in their career, how they feel about the work. What are the challenges maybe they're having? What challenges do they have in home life? How are they doing that balance, right? And so it's some of those things. So I think we need to stop looking at where's the requirement, what does it say to check a box, right? Supervising individuals, especially peers, it's not checking a box, And so I think it's developing that relationship of that mentor mentee. That's really important. So I guess, does that help you a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, because like all of my other licensures, there's a set, you need supervision, it needs to be this long, this often. And with peer, I'm like, okay. And I recently got a new supervisor and she's like, well, how often did you meet with your other supervisor? And I'm like, once a week,
Yeah.
and
It's not a licensure, first of all, it's a certification.
patient. Yeah.
So it's a little bit different than like when someone has licensure for like social work.
Uh-huh.
So it's a certification. And I think it is, like I said, I meet with all my staff at least once a week, just kind of just seeing how they're going. But it's not necessarily, supervision is not just about going over a set standardized, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Right? There's so many other things involved. And that's why did you ever take that 4-hour class from OMAS?
Yeah. I had
Okay.
it back in 2017. So I'm like, and now I'm actually a supervisor. So I'm like,
Right.
okay, I just want to make sure I'm doing my best
Yeah,
with
and
the
they
people
they really have upgraded it. Yeah, I think it's developing relationships, but you're right, Stephanie, there's no one set supervision, there's a best practice suggested, and I can actually get that and send that to you. I can get, because Gary is kind of like where I look at, he's the gold standard of some of the things of supervision. But I do think it's important to meet with anyone that you're supervising weekly. Even if it's not necessarily and sometimes you're meeting with that person, maybe just discuss them, how are things going for them, in general, in their work and their work life balance, right? Because as employers, we want to show that we care. We want to show that we have this humanistic approach, not necessarily this top down approach. I look at things as supervision is like we're all working, we're equals, we're all working in this round circle together, right? And obviously, when there's something that's really detrimental, yes, I'm talking to them every day, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm constantly putting out fires. You may too, daily. So of course I'm talking to them, but I try to really focus on maybe giving them each a solid 1 hour a month when we're really doing things. But I am having contact every day, right?
Yeah.
That's a part of
Okay.
the supervision. That's a part of the supervision. Having contact. Hey, did you have any challenging things today? What are your thoughts? And see, that's just it. They're always checking in with me to see what were my thoughts on that. And we update each other, right? And so we're having, I have a very small staff. There's just 6 of us, and so we're meeting once a month anyway. And for a meeting, I take everyone out to breakfast. And then it's like we're just kind of like doing a go around of what we've been seeing. We're in a strategic visioning plan. And so we're implementing that, and I've onboarded, 3 new people. So we're just changing a lot. And so just really keeping in touch with those changes. And what we've done here, we've launched an Athens County Emergency Warming Center. So we're now running 3 facilities. We've done this in partnership with the city and a bunch of community volunteers and partners, but we're kind of in charge of that. So we ramped up in a week's time to serve our unhoused population, because we serve many. So
Thank you for that.
sure.
Anybody else? Anything new or exciting coming down the pipe when it comes to peer supports in the state of Ohio right now?
I think that the peer tax, I was just on a meeting with the peer tax, and there is going to be, they're expanding more because it just used to be 20 hours that you could contact, and now it's going to be full time, and there's more workforce development in the works that individuals and for supervisors will be able to take. But the peer summit, I would recommend everyone who supervises peers or is a peer to really be looking for Ohio. And you could even your organization can become like a member of Ohio Pro, or just to get on a list so you kind of know what's going on if you employ peers and the importance of that. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ginger. Appreciate your time and all that great information. Very helpful.
Sure.
All right. Okay. Stephanie, Lauren, you want me to flip a coin, or since Stephanie's unmuted, or?
I'll mute myself now. How do I?
It's up to you, Lauren. Either way.
Doesn't matter to me. You can go ahead and go.
Okay, perfect. So I'm talking about great things peers are doing in Muskingum County. Is that it, Jamie? Okay. Well, we do peer individuals at MBH. We also do peer groups 3 times a week now. Looking at maybe doing some adjustments with those, but with Medicaid's new peer group billable thing, we are doing it as peer groups now instead of just recovery services groups. So that's something we've changed here locally. They're going well. I seem to get the same people every week. It's like the same client comes out every week, which is great, but I'm like, how do I expand it? So we did move one of them to one of our sober houses. Every Tuesday now, we are offering recovery rocks over at the Pearl House. So that seemed to get more people in, not just my same clients that come every week to my Monday, Friday group here at MBH. So that's something new we're doing. We are also doing the START program, so that's exciting. We're partnering with our Muscatine County Children's Services, and we have a new peer here, and she is working with the START program. That's her full position. So that's super awesome. Abby, one of our peers here, recently got promoted to housing manager. So she's running Naomi, Frank's Way, and Pearl House now. So as a peer here, she's doing all three of those. What else do we got? We got START, housing, peer groups. Every Wednesday we still do offer to all women's Empower Hour group. That's been going really well. Something recently, well, it's not recent. Something we do a lot of is giving back to the community. And so now it's become a thing. Every Thanksgiving we make handmade turkeys, paper turkeys, just whatever willy-nilliness we find along the way. We go decorate Christ's table, our local soup kitchen. So that's been kind of a thing. And then we were contacted by the Homeless Advisory Board, and they were doing love bags for the homeless, and they were giving them out in February. So I talked to my groups, and we decided we were making little candy doily pouches. So we did those, and we give those to the Homeless Advisory Board to give out on Valentine's Day in their bags. So every person gets a little individual love, little piece of candy with a little personalized envelope made with it. So we also have war here. We are recovery, which it's kind of on a hiatus. We're looking to get it back this spring. We usually do an event every April, 420 event. I don't know what day that's on this year. I haven't even looked at that. I'm still rocking 2024 calendar on my desk. That's how far behind I am right now, okay? But we always try to do a big event in the spring, outdoorsy, gamesy, just getting people, showing them the fun in recovery. I think that's a piece a lot of people miss, is that, especially the younger ones, when they come in, I'm never going to have fun again. So showing them how fun recovery can be and just getting out. This past summer, we were at Lake Isabel almost every Saturday. We made arrangements with the lake, and they were letting us people in at discounted prices, and we were having 50+ people out there playing volleyball and hanging out and cooking out and just, all the things. Moms getting to bring their kids and, hang out with the kids and see what it looks like to have fun in recovery as a family unit as well. It's been one of my biggest successes, I think, as a peer, is being able to be a part of that. And, teaching the people, showing them, you can still have fun and there's things you can do. We hold dances. We help with the recovery community. We hold dances, Halloween. There's usually a Valentine's one, but it did not get scheduled this year. So we're not having one. Somebody just messaged me the other day wanting to know about it. And I'm like, no, we're actually not this year. I'm sorry. So I think that's another piece too, is finding those younger peers in recovery to take over some of these events after you've been doing them for so long, getting the new peers engaged into stepping up and helping with some of these other events out there, because sometimes we just get too much on our plate. And I feel like I dropped the ball when somebody messaged me about Valentine's, and I'm like, yep, no, that's not happening. Would you like to host it? I'll find you a location, But so passing on the stuff we've done as peers to the new peers coming up, because I feel like the longer we're around, I feel like we get more on our plate, and we just don't have time to keep up with all the things that we were doing originally. So that's one of my goals as a supervisor now, is to learn how to assign some of the stuff I've done to my peers so that they can help kind of, passing the baton, so to speak, or keeping the torch going, So that's one of my goals for 2025, is to pass the baton more and get more of my peers doing some of the things I was doing. So I have time to do all this new stuff I have to do, I guess is the way I get to do, I should put it. I don't know. But so War will come back this spring. We usually meet once a week or once a month, depending on what we've got coming up. And it's a group of people. It's We Are Recovery. They're all volunteer group. We meet via Zoom and we kind of plan things as a group together. Do we think this will be a good idea? Or this happened and they want to know if we'd like to help with that. We started going to the food pantry and volunteering, and next thing I know, we left there with a whole schedule for the whole rest of the year of days we could volunteer. Um, but we've kind of got away from that because our members kind of, it's great to see that like they get jobs and their lives are getting back on track. And then I get a new group of peers for war. And then it's like getting them engaged, and then they run off and get married and have kids or get jobs. And it's like, okay, a whole new group of wars coming in. Yay. So it's great to see that, but it's also like, okay, we keep starting over again. So, and there's been a lot of job changing here at MBH. So John was my co-part in war, and we currently don't have a male peer support, which I like to have. I feel like it's a good dynamic for war to have a peer and a female and a male, just with it being like the big events and they're in public, and I feel like that's a big piece. So hopefully we're going to be getting a new peer support soon, and I'm kind of hoping we can lean towards a male one. So maybe he could kind of help with war too. So I don't know, but that's something to look forward to. Um, what else do we have ongoing here? We are going to be going into the emergency room, and we're going to be having more peers in our local jail. Kind of a jail treatment team is kind of what, and a peer is going to be a part of that. Super excited. We just got that news like last week. So that is definitely exciting. Jails is one of my passions. It's been since I started here. So I'm super excited about that. And I feel like that's a piece our local jail's been missing for a long time. Having that peer that goes in. So what else do we got to cover? The peer summit you talked about, I went last couple of years and it is always amazing, and it's good to get a mesh with the other peers. And yeah, so I'm super excited about that coming up. I just got my email the other day about presenters, so I saved my date. So yeah, and I just came back from the GAM conference last week up in Columbus, the gambling one, and they were excited. They are hoping to push out gambling peers within the next year through OMOS. So I thought that's exciting news. I've gotten a couple referrals here wanting to talk with a peer about gambling, and I've given them the information that I've learned from those trainings. But that peer one-on-one, I think that's a huge piece, and I'm excited to see where they go with that. So that's something new. Yes, so we will be going into our Genesis local emergency department as well as our city and county jail. I don't know what all that looks like. It just came out this week actually, so I'm super excited to see where this is going to go.
That's amazing. I would love to know more how you guys got into your jail and things like that. So I'd love once you guys start the program, because I know some areas have done it. They do it around, but we are not, the gathering place. It's like we just can't take on everything. But I'd like to know like how, because there's a new RCO that's been really trying to work. That'd be a really great project for them. But I'd love to hear more about that when you feel that you have a good handle on it. But it sounds like you're doing some fantastic work, Stephanie. Thanks for sharing all that. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what this looks like. I know right now we do offer a case manager. She goes into the jail and does a group in our
And that's
local
coming from
city and our county.
Genesis? Did you say Genesis? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Genesis. We're Zanesville, Muskingum County.
Okay, that's right. Right. Okay.
So
That's awesome. That's so amazing that you guys are doing that.
yeah,
That's
so
really-
I don't even know what all this looks like yet. I just got an email that this is happening last week while I was at gambling conference, and I'm like, hey, so
I'm glad
yeah.
you went to that. That's really
And
it's
then
really
we've always done a great relations with our Department of Corrections. The people coming home from prison. We have the Reentry Coalition locally and that kind of thing. And as a peer, I get to work with the people coming home, and that's been one of my passions since I started here too. So, we've always had that great relationship with ODRC, and our local, county and city jails, they're phenomenal working with us. They come to our collective impact, our Healthier Muskingum. That's something else is up here. We get to sit on a lot of coalitions, I get to be a part of Drug Free Muskingum, and we do the recovery walk, waddle, run, the color run every year. And
Yeah.
just had our big dodgeball tournament, which, the second place winner donated his money to war. So it's a little bit of funding for, I don't know what we're going to plan to do with it yet once we kick back off, but that's exciting news.
So the second place winner was
Balls Deeper. That was the name
led
of their
by-
team. And it's my husband's team.
There we go.
And I registered him and they said you didn't put a nonprofit down. So I messaged him. I'm like, hey, do you want to be your nonprofit? He said, your group. And I was like, great, war it is. So they took second place. I had nothing to do with any of that. So, but, so he's been a part of every year he's played since we've started dodgeball, and he gets a group of guys together, and it's pretty cool because we get groups, people that, started out in treatment centers coming with the treatment center, and then they get their own team together back as they stay in recovery, and he's got guys that have moved away. One guy lives in Columbus now, the other guy lives on the other side of Newark, but they got sober here in Zanesville, and they come back to play dodgeball with him every year. And they're still in recovery. They're doing great. They brought their kids this year, like the one got married and had a baby, and so it's great to get to see that. And then so yeah, I'm pretty blessed. My husband's pretty supportive of me and my shenanigans and whatever we got going. So
Thank goodness.
fishing pools you guys see behind me, we do fishing trips. So he donated those to me, and they've just been in my office behind my door since last spring. I don't know why I need to move them, or last fall. But he donated those to my work because he got tired of me taking his fishing pools. So we had a lady who has a private pond, and she lets us go out there and fish. Says people are in early recovery, it's part of figuring out, what do you like to do again? And I had to go through that. I hated that phase. Like, oh God, do I like doing this? I don't know if I like doing this, but fishing's been pretty popular. So we go fishing at least 2 or 3 times in the spring, and then again try to go in the fall. So that's something we do. We do a local trip to our fair every year as a group. We do a scavenger hunt there to have something to do during the day, and so just different things. I think that's one of my best things about being a peer is just trying new things. Like, okay, we're gonna try this. And some of the ideas I have work great. Some of them don't. And we're like, okay, never doing this again. Or maybe we put it on a back burner for a while, and then when we get a new population of clients, we try it again. So I think one of my best things with groups is letting the clients pick the activities. When I get a new group of people in my peer groups, what we do is we sit down, okay, what's some things you want to do with this group? We're in the process of this spring being able to go out to our local wilds. Here in Chandlersville, we have the wilds, and I met a lady at something I was at, and she worked there, and we're going to do a community service project for them, and then we're going to go on a free tour. I was like, that's right up my alley.
With our members, we've taken our members several times. Can I ask a question? Because I'm a little bit ignorant. Because I know in Zanesville that there's a drop-in center, and I think it used to be run. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Is that still around?
It is still around.
Okay.
It's still around.
And so when you were talking about Genesis, is Stephanie, so they are hiring, they have peer supporters, but it's like what you're describing, are those like peer services at Genesis? Because is Genesis like a provider? I'm trying to understand it. Are you guys considered a peer drop-in center as well?
So we are an outpatient, Muskingum
Okay.
Family Health, we do outpatient mental health and AOD.
Okay.
So we are not a drop-in center. We are an outpatient facility. But Genesis is our local hospital ER. The peer
Okay.
person that's going to be working with them is not going to be an employee of Genesis.
Okay.
They'll be an employee of MBH, I do believe.
Okay.
We're still working out all the fine details. That just come out, but I'm super excited about that because we've tried warm handoff with them through another coalition, and it lasted for a minute, but then it stopped. So we're kind of excited to have up here in our hospitals because we have so many overdoses.
Right.
numbers are coming down, but they're still not getting the resources they need when they're leaving our ERs. So we're hoping that
Right.
that's something we can kind of change in that perspective.
It just sounds like such great work you guys are. I love hearing that because a lot of stuff you're describing is like what we do at, our drop-in center, but we don't have the, treatment. So, because we're non-clinical, most peer recovery organizations like it's just, they're like their own kind of 501(c)(3). They're not connected with clinical. So I'm just trying to understand more, which I should, since it's our area, because technically I have a 21 catchment area for our statewide advocacy network. But in the early days when we had this, like 8 years ago, I was working with all the peer drop-in centers that were in your area. There was one in Cambridge, there was one in Nelsonville, and or not Nelsonville, Cambridge, Zanesville. And it's just, and they were engaged for that first year, but it's just I couldn't get much engagement, and I wasn't really. It was just different, And so I love hearing this. This is really cool.
Yeah.
So.
I've been with my agency since 2016, and I think I was our third peer they
Okay.
hired.
Yeah.
So
No, I love it. I mean, I think that's no, it sounds like you guys so many. It's just a good thing, and you guys all build. It's all build Medicaid. You guys build Medicaid for all the.
mostly our Mental Health and Recovery Services Board is phenomenal in helping out with like not peer services now, but before Medicaid was a thing, like we could do peer run or peer support groups, and it wasn't called peer support groups then, it was called recovery groups, recovery services
yeah.
activities.
Yeah.
So our Mental Health and Recovery Services Board was phenomenal with helping with that before Medicaid billables,
Yeah,
but with
No,
Medicaid billables, a lot of it goes through them.
Yeah, so we don't bill Medicaid, and we probably never will because individuals here, there's providers. We have like Hopewell. We have something. I'm just trying to understand more that they hire peer recovery supporters, health recovery services as well. But it's like you guys kind of like have a combination, which is I really like.
So we offer counseling here, case
Yeah.
management, and peer services all in the same thing. We have our licensed
Yeah.
social workers, independent licensed social workers. We have our case managers. So we have the people with all the different levels of licensure.
I just love how they're hiring peer support. This is great because it wasn't always like that, as you know. So that's really cool. I really like how you guys. Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, sorry.
Well, we'll transition to Lauren because Lauren also is with an agency that offers everything. Like, woo. So.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lauren Jute. I am currently the billing manager for Perry Behavioral Health Choices here in New Lexington. I have a little over 8 years in recovery, which also allows me to hold my peer support certification. Thank you. That I've had for almost 6 years. I do have to renew in June. So I've been working on my CEUs. But I'm also the chair for our recovering community organization. So it is made up of staff members in various positions. I think about half or more of us hold our peer support certification. A lot have CDCAs, LPCs, or I'm sorry, LCDCs. We have an independent as well, chemical dependency counselor. We have a neurotechnician for our ETMS program. But the one thing we have in common is we're all in recovery. So we've been around since I think 2021 is when Teresa, our executive director, started our group. But we plan and implement recovery activities. We have a portion of our recovery games that we come up with activities for. We take charge of our International Overdose Awareness Day event and lighting our buildings purple at the end of August. And then we also do some community things. So we've done a hat and glove drive. We have done what else? Blessing box drive. So blessing boxes, I think, are a common thing now, but they're just boxes placed around our county that people can fill, and then anyone that's in need can go to the box and get whatever out of it. And And then we also did a hygiene drive for our local middle school, New Lux Middle School. They allow their students to come in the morning and shower and get a clean change of clothes if needed. And then they will launder the clothes that they came in with if it's necessary. So we did a hygiene drive to give them products for that program. And we think that community piece is extremely important because it helps break that stigma around addiction and individuals in recovery. So we try to do that community piece to our group. But in PBHC programming, our peer supporters provide transportation for patients. And I have some statements from some of our peer supporters, and you will soon hear that it's more than just transportation. I loved what she said about what else goes on with that transportation piece. They work one-on-one. And then they'll also go and check up on patients that they haven't heard from for a while. We recently had two of our peer supporters / case managers get in the car and go out and check on a patient within the last couple of weeks because they hadn't heard from him in a while. So, but I thought the best way to share, how peer support's beneficial to, the individual, their families, and the community was to ask our staff members for how they feel in their positions and how they feel that it is a benefit. So I want to start with reading Amanda Snelling's statement that she gave me. She is our family peer mentor for the Ohio START program. So we also work with our children's services here, as Stephanie mentioned, that Muskingum does. But she stated that as a peer supporter, I remember my early days as a client at PBHC, where I met the trailblazers of peer support and the agency. 2 years later, I followed in their footsteps, and I believe it's an excellent platform for anyone in early recovery. Leading by example, we show others where they could potentially go in their recovery journeys. I see it as a valuable stepping stone in the behavioral health and recovery field. One aspect of my job that I love was the intimate conversations we had in the car, whether we are going to see their child, attending a court hearing, or visiting a doctor's appointment. During these moments, we could relax, connect over music, or appreciate the beautiful landscape of southeastern Ohio. As a peer supporter, I found that clients open to me at a more personal and intimate level than they often do with counselors or intensive outpatient programs. I genuinely look forward to coming into work each day, as I never knew who I would be picking up or what the day would entail. I enjoyed improvising and adapting to how the patient felt, aiming to turn their mood around. I felt this was a strength of mine, and I consider it to be a humbling position to be in. So before I read the other three, I wanted to comment on the last sentence of hers. So we're talking about how it's a benefit to everyone else. But I wanted to point out that she kind of said how it was a benefit to her, that it was a humbling position. And I think, Ginger, you did make a comment earlier as well about how peers are more apt to, staying in recovery if they're working as a peer to others in recovery. So I liked that she said that there at the end. So my next one is from Craig Wilson. He is peer supporter, case manager for our Evolution program, which is our male residential facility. He states, I always felt peer support is beneficial for the simple reason of a shared experience that people can relate to. Working with patients, I've always noticed how much they respond when they find out I have been where they are in recovery process. It allows us to lower some barriers and begin the process of communication and helping out on a more equal footing. Along with that, I have noticed that most patients' peers are more willing to reach out if they know I'm a peer supporter and have a shared experience. I've had people outside of the agency contact me because they know I'm a peer supporter and they simply want to talk to someone who has the same type of experience as they are having. That understanding allows them to open up and feel more comfortable when talking about themselves in recovery or just life. The next one was from Lucas Slate. He is peer supporter for our outpatient programming. He states, for me, being a peer supporter hopefully will instill some hope in others that recovery is possible. Having mental health and addiction problems, I've run into many individuals also struggling with a dual diagnosis, and pointing them in the right direction comes through my own experience is crucial. As we know, getting and sometimes asking for help is hard for addicts, and hopefully talking to someone who has walked a similar path can help them in their own journey to recovery. Ultimately, people in recovery make their communities much stronger, being a productive member of that community. And then my last one was from Allison Hoover. She's peer supporter and case management for our outpatient programs. And she stated, peer support is incredibly important because it creates a space where individuals feel understood and less isolated. When patients connect with others who are in recovery, they often feel more comfortable sharing their experiences, struggles, and victories. There's a sense of trust that comes from knowing that the person they're talking to has walked a similar path and can relate to the challenges they're facing. This shared experience can foster a strong sense of empathy and emotional connection, making it easier for patients to open up and be honest about their feelings and progress. This not only helps patients feel more hopeful and motivated, but it also reinforces the idea that recovery is possible and they're not alone in the process. So, I just read, 4 very similar statements. Some key points that they all stated, we have a shared experience that allows, the peers we're working with to feel comfortable and the willingness to open up. They're learning by example and showing that recovery is possible. So I was laying in bed a few nights ago trying to figure out how I was going to end everything that I was saying, and so this is what came to me. I don't know if it makes sense, but in my head it makes sense. But sometimes all we have in the beginning of recovery is hope. So why not put individuals that are a shining example of just that in their path? So.
Wow, you guys are so powerful. I'm just really, really impressed with your 6-county area, and I'm just so thrilled that you asked me, Jamie, to come because I think I probably picked up and learned way more than you guys learned from me. But you guys are pretty dynamic, and I just want to let you know that anytime you guys questions or anything that you need help with, please just contact me. My Jamie, I'll even put my email in the chat, but anything like on the state level, anything that like Ohio Pro could do for peer services within your organization or just certain questions. But if you guys are peer supporters, definitely get on that app, the mobile app, go to the Ohio Pro, because I think you guys are just obviously huge leaders in your area. And obviously Jamie knows that. And I just think you could really be very beneficial for sure to other peers on this app, but I'm just really proud to have met you. I feel that Stephanie, you and I have met before. And so maybe it was at one of these, maybe it was at a peer summit because I do help run those, design those. But anyway, I'm putting my email, and yeah, you guys are rocking it in that 6-county area. It's so great.
I know we're very lucky here. We have excellent peer support, excellent peer supporters leading the way. So so thank you all for coming today, for speaking. Lauren, I would love it if you would share those stories with me. We're building our year-end report right now, our annual report, and I would love to include some of those in that report.
I'll send them to you.
And the last thing you said too. I mean, I'll give you credit for it. Like, I won't take credit, but I would love to have that too, because that was amazing. I loved it.
Okay.
So,
And I'd like to get the two of you, Lauren and Stephanie's info as well. I sent you my email because we do a wellness symposium every year for our region, and you guys are literally you guys are in our area for Swan. and I'd love to maybe have you guys as speakers, and we pay. So,
I don't, so.
yeah, so I'll definitely reach out to y'all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lauren, great job. It was great hearing from you. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
I know. Thank you. So you did a good job too.
Yours was well more organized. You can tell like you put I just am like more like wing it on the day of because
My
that's just how I
OCD doesn't
roll.
allow me to wing it. I have to prepare.
You
Two
can tell
very
you
different
definitely
ends of the
prepared.
spectrum. Very
Yes.
different ends of the spectrum there. All right. Well, I do
I'm looking
thank you.
forward to recovery games.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah, but I do thank you all. Our next Recovery University will be May 13th. It was supposed to be the 6th, but that's election day. And so we will push
Right.
it back a week. So yeah, May 13th. And I haven't decided which of our 4 topics we're going to tackle yet that are left. But again, thank you. And I hope I see you then.